This spring, a few dozen insurance executives sat down in a conference room above Times Square to play a game. The dungeon master was Josh Corman, former CISA strategist, one of the people who has spent the last decade warning that cyber and public safety are the same problem. The game. 5,000 U.S. water utilities have been hacked, controls unresponsive, water mains bursting. And the question on the table was not, how do we stop the hackers? It was worse. It was, who gets help first? And who gets nothing? Andy Greenberg at Wired sat in on the whole thing, and his write-up is one of the most useful pieces of cybersecurity journalism this year. Not because the scenario is fiction, because the access it's based on is real. Volt Typhoon, China's pre-positioning campaign inside U.S. critical infrastructure, has been public since May of 2023. 3 years. And in 3 years, there has not been one confirmed incident where that access was used for an actual disruptive attack. That creates a dangerous kind of comfort. The threat never goes off, so we stop imagining what it looks like when it does. Understanding Volt Typhoon has become an exercise in imagination. That is exactly what this war game was built to fix. And the people it was built for were not utility operators or government responders. They were insurers. Because when a company gets hacked, the first phone call is usually not to the FBI and not to CISA. It is to the insurance company, who then unlocks the lawyers, the money, and the incident responders. In a national scale cyber event, the insurance industry is part of the emergency response system. Almost nobody plans for that. In the game, it is July 1st, 2027, right before the Independence Day weekend, in the July heat. The morning paper carries a headline about growing fears of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. A ransomware spree has already tied up about a third of the country's incident response capacity. Then the starting gun, a restricted federal advisory. Thousands of water utilities breached, controls unresponsive, anecdotal reports of physical damage. The insurance teams get their first assignment, and it already hurts. Do you proactively warn all your clients, which flips the entire insurance model, and how do you pick which victims get your limited responders and money? Then Corman starts walking the room, handing out surprises. At one table, he has a player roll a 20-sided die, looks at the result, and announces that Dragos, CrowdStrike, and Mandiant, the biggest industrial incident response benches in the country, are all unavailable, busy with other victims. Find help somewhere else. One table asks where CISA's responders are in all of this. Corman points out what is true in the real world right now. CISA has gone over a year without a Senate-confirmed director and has lost a large share of its staff. The bench everyone assumes is behind them is thinner than they think. 24 hours of game time later, the second-order effects land. This is the part every OT person should make their leadership sit through. On the screen, looping video of a burst water main, because the attackers didn't just disrupt IT, they broke physical infrastructure that takes months to repair. Everything downstream of that pipe has no water pressure. Everything depends on water. 2,000 hospitals without water. HVAC failing. Evacuation starting in the summer heat. Cold storage refrigeration failing. Water-dependent pharmaceutical manufacturing bottlenecked. Insulin shortages. Data center cooling failing, taking cloud services down with it. The man-made drought spreads outward from the water system into everything the water system touches. That is the lesson of day 2. Then Corman plays a video from a fictional military official, and the game says the word China out loud for the first time. The official asks the insurers to prioritize military mobility, because this attack looks like the opening move of a Taiwan invasion. So now the tables have to choose. Prioritize the biggest customers the way their business model wants, first come, first served, save the most lives. Or do what the military is asking and put national security ahead of their own clients. Every table gives the same answer: human life first. And then one participant says the uncomfortable part out loud. That answer may not survive contact with reality. When Treasury's on the phone asking for numbers, when shareholders are asking questions, when a government official says telecommunications and dual-use infrastructure are priority 1, save lives first might not be the actual talk track. Protecting people in the middle of an unfolding war might mean breaking contracts and defying your own government strategy. His table never reached consensus. That was the honest result of the whole game. Now step out of the game, because the reason this scenario has teeth is the campaign it is modeled on. May 2023. Microsoft, NSA, and CISA disclose Volt Typhoon. Hackers working for the Chinese military inside U.S. critical infrastructure networks from the mainland to Guam. Not espionage. Pre-positioning. Building the capability to disrupt infrastructure during a future crisis. And the target list is the detail that should change how every small operator thinks. Yes, a water utility in Hawaii, U.S. ports, a pipeline, things with military relevance. But also the electric light and water department of Littleton, Massachusetts, a town of about 10,000 people. There is no military logic to that target. Former CISA Executive Director Brandon Wales said the only reason to touch a system like that is to cause chaos in the homeland, to influence America's willingness to fight. 3 years later, this is not wound down. Researchers who track the group say Volt Typhoon, or whatever it has evolved into, is still working U.S. electric and water utilities today. Some intrusions get caught, others don't, because the group lives off the land, hijacking legitimate tools instead of dropping malware, and because a municipal utility security budget is not built to find tradecraft at that level. Jen Easterly, who ran CISA when the campaign was discovered, says what was found was the tip of the iceberg, and that China's strategy of holding access to civilian infrastructure for a Taiwan crisis has not changed. And she adds the part that moves the timeline. AI may make mass, simultaneous sabotage more plausible over the next few years, while offense is adopting it faster than defense. Former NSA Cybersecurity Director Rob Joyce put it in one sentence. China has strapped the digital equivalent of explosives to the backbone of American society, and it is quietly maintaining access. Waiting. That is the real-world state. The war game just asks, what if the wait ends? Here is the finding that should travel farthest. The people who co-hosted this game concluded that a cataclysmic cyber attack on infrastructure may simply be uninsurable. The costs would bankrupt the carriers, unless they invoke the act of war exclusions in their policies and pay nothing. We have seen that movie before. After Russia's NotPetya attack in 2017 caused billions in damage, the act of war question went to years of litigation. Now imagine that fight happening while 2,000 hospitals are dry. The insurers either go under or become the villains. And either way, the trust that American society places in insurance takes damage that outlasts the outage. One proposed fix? A federal backstop for cyber, like the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act that came out of 9/11. Worth debating. But Corman's bigger point cuts the other way. The insurance industry's real power is not responding to the catastrophe. It is preventing it. Insurers can write policy requirements the way they once did for fire codes and seatbelts. Patch your edge devices, the exact door Volt Typhoon walks through. Join an information sharing group. Today, out of roughly 151,000 water utilities in this country, about 0.3% belong to one. 3 in 1,000. Finance would never accept that. Electricity would never accept that. Water, the thing everything else depends on, accepts it every day. 3 things for anyone in this audience who has to act on this. 1. If you operate water, wastewater, or any small town OT, you are on the target list. Littleton, Massachusetts is the proof. Being small is not cover. Being small is the point. Your edge devices, firewalls, VPNs, remote access, are the front door. Patch them first and hunt for living off the land behavior, because there may be no malware to find. 2. Read your cyber insurance policy this week. Find the act of war exclusion. Ask your carrier, in writing, how it applies to a state-attributed attack on infrastructure. Then tabletop your first hour with them, because in a real event, they are your first call, and their responders may already be spoken for. Roll the 20-sided die yourself before someone rolls it for you. 3. Join your sector's information sharing group. If you're in water, that's Water ISAC. Moving that 0.3% number is the cheapest national defense investment available to anybody watching this. In the game, nobody won. That was the design. Corman built it to overwhelm, to surface assumptions and shatter them, because a comfortable assumption is the most dangerous vulnerability in the room. The uncomfortable truth underneath it: the access is already in place, the response bench is already thin, and the financial system we assume will absorb the damage may legally excuse itself the moment the attack is attributed to a state. Prevention isn't just cheaper than response. On the current numbers, prevention may be the only move that works. A few of the companies in the Gula Tech portfolio live exactly in this fight. Gray Noise watches exploitation of the network edge devices Volt Typhoon uses, often before the headlines. Gravwell gives operators the log visibility that living off the land tradecraft is designed to evade. And Surefire Cyber works right at the seam this whole game exposed. Incident response coordinated with the insurance side. Corman opened his game the way the movie War Games does. Shall we play a game? The movie's answer still holds. The only winning move is not to play, at least not on the adversary's terms. Patch the edge, share the intel, know your policy. Make the fictional version of July 2027 stay fiction.